Hello and good evening. For All Mankind, Season 2, Episode 3, titled Rules of Engagement, is over, and it has been since 2021, but we're just getting started here in 2025 as we continue our mission to watch every episode of For All Mankind and talk all about it. Here on Live Long and Podcast, a live stream on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, might be listening to this audio version, and we're a day early, but tomorrow is Canada Day, to all those who celebrate, mostly Canadians. And happy early Canada Day to you. We got a great panel here to talk all about this episode of For All Mankind. Coming in next, it's the inimitable Kevin Millard.
Hello, Dave.
Hey, Kevin. How you doing?
I'm good.
Good.
It's been a good long weekend.
It's been a good one, you know. We went golfing yesterday, just like Molly Cobb and Ed did, and it was about the same results, you know?
No bucket hats.
No bucket hats. Jody wouldn't stand for it. Coming in here next, well, I got no clever pun or things to put it, but it's my brother, Jeff. How you doing, Jeff?
Hey.
Hey, happy Canada Day, early Canada Day to you. And from our nation's capital, he's living it up in Ottawa for the Canada Day. Best Canada Day I ever had was in Ottawa. It's Adam Woodward.
Hey, guys. Yeah, I'm going to be able to watch the snowbirds tomorrow and then go see some fireworks over at Parliament Hill. So looking forward to it.
Excellent.
And Dave, may I say what an honor it is to be on a well-organized and well-moderated podcast with you.
Well, thank you, Adam. That's very kind of you to say.
Jeff, Evan, what do you think?
It's propaganda.
He's all right.
It's propaganda. It's a bunch of things here. Yes, of course, we're missing Heather and Jody tonight. They both send their regrets. They got busy social lives. What are you going to do? And they couldn't be here for this one, but we'll catch up with them on episode 4 next week. So, yes, we're talking about Rules of Engagement, the 13th episode overall For All Mankind. Written by Stephanie Shannon, directed by Andrew Stanton, and it came out on the March 5th, 2021. Is there anything else to say about this? In this episode, a dispute on the moon prompts NASA officials to consider arming astronauts. So that's one development, and then Ed's past comes back to haunt him as the other sort of teaser synopsis from the episode. Spoilers, if you have not seen For All Mankind, we are going to talk all up until For All Mankind, up until Season 3, Episode 2. 3. Are we on 3? Sorry. Season 2, Episode 3. Here we are. All right. Well, are you still bored, Kevin?
A little bit, yeah.
Okay, just checking.
There's some good stuff here. I like that whole scene with Ed and when she tells him that she wants to go to the Naval Academy. Their reactions are interesting, and
yes,
that was a good scene. And I like the premise of arming the astronauts and all of that, but it's still just a bit slow. Oh, and I can't believe it, but I care even less about Elena now.
Okay, well, maybe that's a good segue. Jeff, Elena's back, and you're happy.
She's a vindictive girl, this girl. Well, you know.
She's a young woman now.
A young woman. I'm never getting over that. You try to get me a job, a dream job?
And stop me from being deported?
Yeah. Oh, who do you think you are?
Your stuff's in the box. Get out of here, Davey.
Get out of here. Get out of my trailer.
Well, that was a no-go.
Get out of my trailer. Get out of my life.
Yeah.
And yeah, I will take that job.
Elena's got a bit more of an edge after these last 8 to 9 years.
She drives a Gremlin.
She drives a Gremlin. So, but yeah, we're gonna get into there's all Elena's back. Yes, there's the whole scene with Ed and Kelly and Karen, which I think is maybe one of the best acted scenes in the entire series. Very, very emotional. There's a lot going on with Gordo and Tracy too in this episode. And Adam, how's this going so far for you?
Okay, I'm back. I did enjoy yesterday's or whatever the third. I watched it last night. I found this episode. Everything I didn't like about Ed was sort of corrected in this episode tonight. I felt that finally the guy cracked. I mean, that veneer of tough guy. I got to throw phones and tables across the room and mow the lawn in the middle of the night or that. And going back to that scene where he was trying to teach his son Shane how to ride a bike, and and for me it was like he spent his days training women how to be astronauts, but he couldn't teach his own son how to ride a bike without losing his temper. And he was a very flawed dad, I think, and because probably gave it all he had at the office and then had nothing more when he got home and just took it out on the poor kid. But there was a lot of guilt for sure.
Yeah, we saw that very much in the first season. That was very much the story of the Baldwin family, that Ed was way more fixated on his life as an astronaut than he, as a father, even maybe a bit as a husband, but more extreme on the father side in terms of his, I guess.
And the other thing, what a great wife and mother Karen is, honestly.
Yeah, there's a lot going on. Yeah, Karen, she's a lot in this episode. She has her reaction to Kelly saying, "I want to go to the Naval Academy. I want to fly Tomcats and be a fighter pilot." And there's also Ed's reaction to that as well. And it all happens in that scene like within 10 minutes, and that's, I guess, the only unrealistic thing. I think that fight would probably go on longer, and then, maybe, but it's nice that it does go on for a while in the episode, but it's, I don't know, in real life, I feel like that would probably take a couple conversations to get to.
So, like, in the show, though, are we kind of abandoning the idea that this is about the space program at all? Like, they're not spending a lot of time on the space program, or what is different about.
They're trying to figure out how to shoot a gun on the moon, Kevin.
Yeah, like I'd say in this particular season, it's because they've already got to the moon, and so it's not a new place. It's more about continuing that development on the moon and the competition with the Soviet Union. But not like in terms of like going to Mars and that kind of stuff, like the next steps in space travel. That stuff's coming, but we're not quite there yet. So this season, I'd say this is more of the focus is still the moon. And then we get more into Mars next season and that stuff. But
this is about Space Wars.
This is more about Space Wars. And let's get into the episode because there's a lot to unpack here. Okay, I got my first complaint, though. My first gripe with this episode is it's right at the beginning.
Okay.
Right here, we have a scene here from The Real Ghostbusters, a cartoon I grew up watching. Now, the movie Ghostbusters comes out in 1984. Okay. The cartoon, The Real Ghostbusters, not to be confused with Ghostbusters, which was a TV show cartoon based on a live action show about two guys and a gorilla. But I digress. The Real Ghostbusters, this didn't come out till like 1987, I think, or 88, a couple years after the movie came out. And so this is an anachronism. Unless I'm supposed to believe that in this altered timeline where the Soviets got to the moon first, for some reason, Dan Aykroyd and Harold Ramis decide to make Ghostbusters a couple years early. Is that what I'm, it's a late 70s, early 80s movie instead? But
I guess.
I mean, well, Reagan's president 4 years earlier, so maybe everything kicked into gear earlier.
Maybe Dan Aykroyd's like, I'm making this movie sooner. Could be. It was nice. This was one of my favorite cartoons as a kid. I had all these action figures.
Yeah.
Like this was right up there with Ninja Turtles and all that. But so it was nice to see it. But also I'm like, oh yeah, it's 1983, the year I'm born, and this is definitely not the case. But anyway, we interrupt this cartoon for a special breaking news. We get our old friend here, Paul Michaels, who works at Instagram, I think, and he's giving us the report that President Ronald Reagan talks about 4 U.S. soldiers who were kidnapped. Help me out here. What was the country? Panama. Did this happen in real life? Is this a real event?
I believe so, yes.
Yeah, so we get a speech here from Reagan on the news talking about how we're not going to stand for the American soldiers being taken hostage, or America's not going to stand to be messed around with. You're not going to mess around with America. That's kind of what Reagan's saying here.
Yeah, this is the start of the neocon legacy. All started with Reagan.
Right, and it's starting, I guess, a bit earlier in this time.
A little earlier,
too,
yeah.
right? So he's like, "We'll defend all our people, whether they be on Earth or on the moon." And then we transition. We see Jamestown base. We got to zoom out from Jamestown base across Shackleton Crater, and then we move across the crater, and then we zoom in on the Russian base, which I can never say. Sorry, not the Russian base. The American astronauts in the 2 rovers who are heading to their lithium mine, and they're going along, and when they get to the mine, they go, "What the hell is that? Where's all our stuff gone? Or how's all of our stuff been taken out of the mine and moved over here to the side?" We'll find out it's the Soviets. I also like
it's nice of them to bring it all up and stack it all up nicely instead of just throwing it.
I was about to say it. They stacked it all up very nicely, and they even folded up the American flag nice and neat, and placed it on top. They're like, "Oh, it's no disrespect. We're just completely stealing your mine,"
The
moon is for everyone.
The flag is not it can't be a limp flag that you can fold.
Right. I thought that those flags have poles and stuff
to
keep because there's no wind on the moon, so there's no way for it to stand upright. But I don't know. That's another Ghostbusters is happening in 1983. I don't know what to tell you. Anyway, they get down to the crater and they see oh, we got a situation here. What do you mean situation? Repeat, astronauts. Tell us what you mean. Well, they've planted their own flag and they've made their own little mine here. And where are
No, they didn't make it. They just took over.
They just took over. Yes.
Americans did all the work.
So they get the report back down to Earth, and there's this meeting. We have this kind of, talking. It's Margot. It's this new general guy, Bradford. We got, of course, Ed, and then Thomas Paine, who's Reagan's guy inside of NASA, is here. He's like, "Oh, well, I just had a conversation with the president, and he's not happy about this. The Soviets taking over our base." And they're talking about what they're going to do. How are they going to fix it? And basically, Thomas Paine's saying, the president says, just wait for them to leave and then go back in there and take over. And then we'll have to keep people that sort of there on guard, in 24-hour shifts. Of course, Ellen's here too. I forgot. Ellen's kind of becoming more. I thought she was working for Margot, but she seems definitely to be working more for Thomas Paine in the administration directly. And so kind of in a shadowing role, I would say. Anyway, it evolves into this whole conversation about, okay, well, even once we take back the base and all these kinds of things, the general says, how are we going to defend it? Are we going to have to give them weapons? Because they say we can have 3 shifts and 2 astronauts there all the time. But if the Russians want to take the site, how are 2 guys in spacesuits going to take them down? Are they going to wrestle?
This shows how unrealistic, too, that politicians can be. They're like, yeah, just hold it. But he's like, wait a minute, nobody's talking about weapons. And the general's like, well, how do you expect them to hold it?
Right. Yeah. And Margot being one of the most vocal voices against this. Ed coming at it he's agreeing more with the general. He's a military man, Ed. Kind of having this idea of that some of the astronauts are Marines, and anybody who's got a Marine officer has to go through some level of infantry training before they can become a Marine. So technically the Marine astronauts are trained in how to use a weapon already. But don't all soldiers have to go through some version of that?
Basic training. So
training?
If they were in the Air Force or the Navy, they've had training. Plus it's
also, I'm sorry, but using a weapon is not that fucking difficult. You point and shoot. It's not
it's a safety.
Right. To learn how to maintain it is a different thing, but to use a weapon is not that hard.
Can in reality, not in this show, can a firearm actually fire in space?
I have no idea.
I'm going to look that up for fun facts.
I would like to know because it will come relevant in this show, and I don't think it would, but it might. But it's in a vacuum, so I don't know if the spark. I don't know if the spark would occur to make the gun shoot.
You would probably need to have air pressure already inside the weapon,
right?
Or something.
Well, if you want the answer, I can give you it right now. Let's talk about that. So yes, the answer is yes. You can shoot a gun in the moon. The oxidizer is within the gunpowder, so a gun will fire on the vacuum of the moon. The bullet will travel significantly further because it will fall slower and there's no air resistance. A very powerful gun, like a military cannon, would be able to fire a shot all the way around the surface of the moon.
It would go all the way around the moon.
It's even more powerful. All right.
And shoot you in the back.
And a bit dangerous if you miss, right?
That is a joke that is made later in the season, so you'll see.
Yeah. Right, but like, do you even need a rifle? Can you just use like a handgun?
But it says here the absence of the atmosphere on the moon and the unique gravitational field drastically alters the behavior of the firearms and their projectiles, creating a scenario riddled with scientific and ethical considerations.
Sure. Yeah, I think they specifically mentioned the Marines, and as non-Americans here on the eve of our Canada Day, I don't know, like the Americans love to talk about the Marines, the few, the proud, the Marines, and we don't have a Marine Corps in Canada. I don't really get it, but they talk about them as being
the Navy
greatest.
SEALs are way more badass than the Marines.
Yeah, that's what I always heard.
Yeah, but I mean, the history of the Marines and what they did in World War II and taking back, the South Pacific,
Iwo Jima and all that.
Yeah, it's a thing.
It's a thing. The Americans are all about the Marines,
and way more people are Marines than Navy SEAls. Like Navy SEAls are very elite.
We use words like honor, pride, code.
You use them as a punchline.
Yeah, I'd rather just say thank you.
And go on your way. Well, now we're quoting A Few Good Men. Well, let's get back to the episode. Anyway, so they're there's all this talk about, and Thomas Paine's against it, which kind of surprises me because I think Reagan's guy inside NASA would be like, yeah, give them guns, but it's kind of Ed and the general again kind of debating against Margot, and at one point Thomas looks at Margot and goes, well, what are we gonna do? And she doesn't really have an idea, like what's the bet, what is her solution,
right? And just remember, she was also on board for taking it back.
Yes.
Like she was like, I agree, we have to take it back. But then as soon as they were like, okay, we need to give them weapons, she was like, wait, no. But
no, I thought they could just insult them and get them to leave. And so, I don't know. Like, Adam, what was your reaction to this idea of arming the astronauts? Is this the logical thing to do, or is this?
I think it's just they're not thinking the end. Like, how does this play out? Like, are you really going to have an armed conflict up there with 20 people against how many were the Soviets have? It just seems ridiculous to me.
Right. And Ed even says it in the scene. He says, once we do this, like, we can't, it's like, we
can't go back.
We can't go back. Right.
But what they're doing, I mean, it becomes a war. I mean, basically what you've got is Americans versus Soviets, whether it's here on the Earth or on the moon, they're fighting each other. It's terrifying.
Whereas, like, in reality, because it's Cold War and nuclear weapons, like, they go to great lengths not to directly engage with each other, the Soviet Union and the United States. But here on the moon, there's nobody else. There's no proxies. There's no, somebody else to do it for you, right? So it's more of a war on the moon even than it is on Earth. Because I think Margot was like, sanctions. Why don't we put sanctions on Russia? That will stop. That always gets them to stop doing things, right? I guess this is around the time of. Was this around the time when the Ukrainian war was breaking out too? 2021. What?
No.
That wasn't for another year, right?
2022.
Yeah. Okay. So it wasn't for another.
I know
year.
because it happened right after Prue was born.
Right. Okay. But still sanction Russia.
I mean, like, just when you think about it, first of all, I mean, you've got to find a weapon that can fit into a glove. Like,
yes, you got to be able to go your index finger with the glove on.
And
through.
But like what the Soviets did was pretty bold. Like, they're taking over the the Americans' mining base. Like, they've taken it over. So they've made the first step. So something's happened. And they're right. The Americans have to react. But it's like, it kind of reminded me, well, we'll just sit by the edge of the playground and wait for the basketball court to empty before. So we're next. But the American, it's just, I don't know what they do. And I don't think that these 5 people can decide.
No, it seems bigger than that. It seems like almost like something that would get debated, even Congress or something like in the public space. But nope, it's all up to these 5 people at NASA. I guess with Reagan's approval. And that is our teaser for the episode, Rules of Engagement, as we get our title card and our writing and directing credits as we head into the episode, which begins at a big mansion here. We don't know whose this is, and we see the blinds open, daylight hits, and it's Tracy Stevens, who's waking up in her new home, woken up by her maid here. And she goes, "What time is it?" 7 a.m., which I guess she was supposed to be at NASA for some simulations or something like that. Also, correct me if I'm wrong, but is she married to Connor Trenier?
Who's Connor?
Like Trip from Star Trek Enterprise?
I don't think that's the actor that plays her husband.
No, I don't think so.
No? Okay. Do we ever meet her husband on the show?
Yes.
Okay. Well,
we meet her in the next season too.
Okay, I don't know who that is. I was like, oh, Connor Trenier's on the show? I forgot. I didn't know that, but maybe it's somebody else. Okay. Adam's looking him up. You always know when you have a Michelob next to your bed when you wake up and you reach for that first, that it's probably you're going through a rough time.
I have to say that, they're not making me like Tracy.
No.
Very likable in this season so far.
No, she's turning into Gordo.
Yeah.
Yeah, more or less. She's definitely got an alcoholism problem. That's for sure. And yeah, she's just like, she tells the maid, like, tell me my car is broken down. And she's like, we have many cars. Which car? She's like, all the cars are broken down. And then she says, your ex-husband called, Mr. Gordo called. And she says it's urgent, but she goes, oh yeah, I bet it is. And
it's always important to Gordo.
It's always everything's important for Gordo, but Tracy doesn't care so much. She heads into the bathroom to get ready to clean up. We get Gordo then in his underwear back at their old home as he's getting ready now to be an astronaut again, everybody. He gets his old astronaut jumpsuit out of the closet, pulls it out, and he's ready. He's ready to start this new chapter of his life. He's going to get back on the horse. But then he gets in the suit, and as we've covered previously, Jamie Doman, who plays Gordo, he put on 40 pounds for this season of the show. And, he gets into the suit, and it doesn't quite fit him anymore. He even tries to zip it up here, but can't get past the midsection, and the zipper breaks up right off. So you might need to get a new one. So a little deflated. Gordo decides, okay, I guess I'm just gonna wear my old golf shirt and slacks. Look here as he heads into his astronaut training class. He's late, of course, just like Tracy is, I guess. But in his case, it was because of zipper malfunctions. The whole class looks around, and we get to see these sweet-looking laptops that they all have. Too bad Jody's not here tonight to talk about this. But with these would be like, I guess, ahead of the reality in 1983. Like a laptop this wouldn't have been around yet.
We had a Commodore 64 and a Tandy.
Yeah. Right. But I love how they all got like the little mouse pads all with them, and like they got the it's still on the wire, but so it's just happening a little bit earlier in this timeline. Gordo's come in. I don't know who this teacher is, but she's present. Anyway, so Gordo sits down next to Danielle, who's already. She says he's out of uniform. He's out of uniform, and he whispers to her, "The zipper broke on my jumpsuit," and she finds that hilarious. So,
and then she says it must have shrunk in the wash.
It must have shrunk in the wash. And he's like, yeah. But then we also find out Gordo has no idea how to use a computer, really, or a laptop. He's a little intimidated by it. And Danielle kind of throws some shade at him here as well for that.
This is the guy you want to send to the moon.
Yeah, he's ready. Send it back. Gordo has never been stronger.
But doesn't he work in mission control?
Yeah, he seems to work there now, right? But now he's being redesignated as an astronaut, so he's got to get back into it, get his telemetry down, etc. Any new technologies, I suppose, as well. We then transition over to the Outpost. Of course, now a family restaurant, as Kelly and Karen are talking about all of Kelly's college ideas. Karen, of course, talking about William and Mary, her alma mater, but we can tell here that Kelly wants to tell her mom something. She's like, well, those are all great, but Mom, I have another idea about going to Baltimore. She's like, well, where do you want to go, honey? Tell me all about it. I want to go there to Annapolis. She's like, well, it's sweet that you want to see your father's old school, but that's not anything else. It doesn't even occur to Karen that that Kelly then drops this revelation. I want to go to the Annapolis Naval Academy. Karen's like, what? You want to what now? And there's quite the shock here. She's like, tell me why. Tell me why. And she gets quite into it.
Her 40-year-old daughter. Yeah.
Her 40-year-old daughter, who's, like the one who plays, and Karen is about 40, who's the one who plays Karen. So, but they're trying to, I don't know. It doesn't matter. Anyway.
It just looks like two peers having a conversation, not a mother and a daughter.
Not a mother and daughter.
That needs to be pointed out.
Yeah. But they gave her a little bit of gray hair this season, Jeff.
It's not her. It's the daughter that doesn't look right.
But they want I guess they didn't want too young of a daughter for.
They had to dye Kelly's hair so it wasn't gray.
Yeah. They're like, you know what? We're gonna have to youngify you.
Right. We gotta look up their ages after. I need to know what the real life ages are. But anyway, so Kelly ends up leaving the conversation, and Karen is clearly upset and disturbed as this happens, and that's sort of that part of it. Then we catch up here with Margot, who we saw in the last episode. She got that message regarding Aleda. So she is driven out here to somewhere, I guess a trailer park, the Sycamore Creek Trailer Park, to be more specific. And Margot walks right up.
Let's look at that gremlin again.
Oh yeah,
what a car!
I like the racing stripes. I guess I think our parents had a station wagon like this one before Jeff was born. But
I looked it up. Actually, Cynthia Wu is she's currently only 26 years old.
Oh, so in 2021 she was even younger then.
She would have been like 21. Yeah, 22.
Okay, so maybe she just looks a little old for her age.
Hey, what's the name of Tracy's fiance again? Or husband, whatever.
Oh, here once.
Like the
Sam?
real actor?
Sam.
Yeah, I want to say Sam as well.
Yeah.
Not Connor Jr.?
One second.
I'm trying to find.
Anyway, so Margot comes into what we'll find out is Aleda's trailer here. But Aleda's on the can. And Aleda's like saying, like, if you're not here to announce who you are, she assumes like their immigration.
Sam Cleveland is his name. And he's played by Jeff Hefner.
Jeff Hefner.
Really? I have.
He was in Oppenheimer. He was in Interstellar. He's been in a few things.
Okay. Not Connor Trinneer then.
No.
Okay. So anyway, Margot has to hand the toilet paper here to Aleda. And then she was like, okay, thank you. What do you want? And she's like, eventually, I guess she doesn't recognize Margot's voice. I know it's been several years, but I think Margot's voice is pretty distinctive, but she doesn't recognize it right away. And finally, Margot just says, it's Margot. And then we see Aleda kind of come out of her, bathroom here. Has a hard time looking at Margot, but does. This is, of course, a new actress playing Aleda from last season, an older version, and anyway, they haven't seen each other for 8 or 9 years at this point. Aleda mostly in a state of shock, I'd say, for the first beginning parts of the scene, as they're talking about it. She's not. yelling at her or anything. There's no, quite, at least not right away. But, Margot talks about, well, your boyfriend called me, Davey, and said you're in trouble of getting deported unless you find a job. And she asks her if she still plays piano, and she says no. Anyway, so eventually, Aleda's like, hey, I didn't ask for your help. How'd you find me? She's kind of defensive. She's kind of saying, I don't want your charity, or your help or anything else. I think eventually Margot says, well, I can offer you a job. I talked to all your former employers. You worked as an engineer in all these places. Just like, my only question really was, like, did Aleda get like an engineering degree of some kind to be like an engineer, or did she like all self-taught, I guess, from over these?
No, she went. Didn't she go to that school? She took that letter with her, so I assume she would have gone to the school.
Yes, but that's like a high school, basically, right?
Yeah.
Like you still have to go to college after that.
I think to work at Boeing, you would need a degree.
I would think so.
Like,
at least as an engineer, because I don't think you can.
Yeah.
I'm not.
Does she have a degree?
Well, that's what we're debating. Like, did she she might have went to that fancy school for the and she's but did she actually have time to go to college or the money or resources to go to college in all this time?
Well,
she was only 12.
She could have got her scholarship. I mean, she was that smart.
Okay, so let's assume she got an engineering degree in these years. So, but she's got an attitude problem, Aleda. She's a little thing here. So what did you think of the scene here with her and Margot? I guess as it was kind of wrapping up. Aleda's like, poor Mexican girl needs to get a job from Margot Madison. How magnanimous. Eventually, Aleda says, I don't want your help. I don't want anything from you at all. Get out. See you later.
I think Margot summed it up pretty good. You got a problem. I have a solution.
Yeah.
Take it or leave it.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I felt like Margot was wasting her time. That's how I felt the whole scene. I'm just like I felt like she was very entitled. And I know like the stuff with her father, but like that wasn't Margot's fault.
No, I think that was referring to when she asked her to live with her.
Yeah, no, I know that. But like, I just think there's just a lot of resentment there that I just think is kind of like misdirected, like at Margot.
Well, yeah, Margot. Yeah, go ahead.
Because it's a big ask to ask somebody to take care of you for the remainder of your childhood.
And she had a good explanation why she couldn't do it. It wasn't like, nah, fuck you. Like, I just don't like you. It was more like, I have a job that is.
I'm married to my job. And we see even in the first scene of this episode or the season that she's like basically living at work. Like, she doesn't even like live in her home, really. So she wasn't the ideal surrogate parent, for sure. And I understood why Aleda asked her at the time. She didn't really have any other options, and Margot, despite not being in the best position to do it, or it's not her fault, she kind of never really did figure out what happened to Aleda either. Like she kind of just said, okay, bye. And she kind of forgot all about her, but I don't think she stopped caring about her either. Like, so it's complicated. Here we are.
Yeah. The truth is, for me, this story just isn't compelling. It never has been. Right. Like Aleda's story, just, I don't know why.
Yeah, well, fair enough. Anyway, Margot's over it too. She's out of here, and so she's like, if you want the job, you know where the building is. You've been there.
It's a big deal for Margot to leave Johnson Space Center. I mean, this is she just took her one trip a month out. Like she's
yeah, they don't let her see daylight any other time. And then she gets into the car and she starts talking to herself in the car, like, "Oh, you got it all figured out, Aleda." And I liked that. That was nice. Where she's kind of processing it all. Okay, back to the Space Center here. There's a conversation here between Bradford and Ed. So they were kind of trying to figure out how did the Soviets figure out where our lithium mine was? How they always seem to be one step ahead of us, right? And effectively, the general's here to put the idea into Ed's head, or to suggest this theory that, you know, in the end of season 1, where Ed was with Mikhail, the Soviet cosmonaut that he almost suffocated to death and then, you know, tied up and beat while he was going through a rough time with his, you know, over Shane, that he's like, is it possible that a bug was planted by Mikhail, right, into Jamestown? He's like, you were in an emotionally compromised place. You hadn't talked to anybody in days. You hadn't eaten in days. You were out of your mind. You know, but Ed's saying, well, there's no time for him to do it. I had him tied up pretty much the whole time, and then we left, which is true. But we saw there at the end of that, once Ed launched up into space, into the orbit there, that Mikhail kind of then looked at the base again, right? And presumably he did it after that.
Yeah, but I don't know whether Bradford was trying, like, what was he trying to imply? That was Ed's problem that this happened? No. If the bug was there for 10 years, this is beyond Ed.
Well, they don't know there's a bug there yet. That's what he's.
They're just coming to this realization.
Yeah, he's like, there's probably a bug. Like, think about it. You were there with this guy. How are they? Like, they're not breaking our code. And he said it was only like Ellen and one other person on the station. And they're like, so it's not a leak. Like, it's not an agent. It's got to be a bug. They got to be listening.
Right. So they have so Ed's like, oh, well, he's kind of denies it at first. He doesn't want to believe that Mikhail, his friend, they talked about Elvis, remember? But no. So anyway, so then there's this scene here where at Jamestown on the moon, the crew, the astronauts, they're going around with this radio detection equipment, trying to figure out where the leak is, if there is a bug somewhere in the place. The commander of the base here, he's talking to Margot and everybody back in Houston. But they're kind of having this conversation where they're saying one thing, but they mean another. They're kind of, you know, not trying to give away that they're onto it. And they're saying, oh, maybe you should check the movies or check the lights or something like that, right? Because they kind of go around the different areas and they can't find anything. I think this is where they tell him, it's the general. He's like, why don't you look in the ceiling? That's where I would hide a bug if I was spying. And they say, hey, check the lights and everything else. So that's what they do. They stand up here on this unit, and lo and behold, what they find? Ding, ding, ding. Red light goes on, and they have found the bug, and it's up here in the ceiling. Now, when this thing would have to be like tied into some kind of power source, right? For 10 years, like for it to keep operating.
He was there alone. He could spend the time to do it.
Yeah, because it just seems like he pulls it out of the ceiling and whatever, and it's just this tiny little thing, But they say, hey, look what we found, and Ed's like, no, Mikhail, I only beat you with my fists over and over again.
To suffocate you to death, and I beat you, and then
how could you do this to me?
Makes me look really bad. There's really a fireable offense, but I'll probably only get promoted for this.
He did. He got promoted to admiral.
How could you do this to me after all we've been through together?
Right. Yeah. So Ed's
after I sabotaged your vehicle and abducted you.
Then Thomas Paine, he goes into this whole, he's like, so I now have to call up Reagan and tell him the Soviets have had a bug inside of our base for 9 years, Well, sorry.
I can't even imagine making that phone call.
Yeah. Yeah, not a good one. He's like, see, I got to go make an unpleasant phone call. So he leaves. Ed's still wrestling with this. How could he do it, Mikhail? So then we head over to the outpost, where Tracy walks in. She's here for a drink, and she says, "Hi, Karen. How you doing?" But Karen looks right at her, but Karen doesn't seem to know it's her at first. Like there's kind of this whole thing, or maybe she knows her, but she's still very in her head about what's going on with Kelly. And Kelly,
I don't think really she looked up. She didn't really. You got a lot of people at the bar. I mean, Jeff can tell you that, I'm sure. You ever look up or don't even look up, you just serve.
Yeah.
Yes, for sure. Yeah.
Well, I in this particular screenshot, this is only an instant, but Karen does seem to look right at her. But anyway, eventually, Tracy says, "How about my ring?" And then, Kelly, or sorry, not Kelly, Karen comes around the bar and hugs Tracy, and they have a nice little. And she's like, "Oh, look at that big rock on your finger! Wow, so nice." Getting into it, where he proposed. They start pouring drinks.
It's like she's not even the same character anymore.
Who isn't Karen?
No, Tracy. Like, remember Tracy was when Shane was dying, she was there. She was like such a different woman than she is now.
True. And now she's turned into this hard drinking Hollywood. But I guess the idea with Tracy, I think, is that fame has sort of changed her. Is
Yes.
kind of what they're trying to present to us. And we didn't see those 9 years, so I don't think it all happened that fast. But I guess she does seem like a very different person now. At this point in her life, going hard. And anyway, so this is where Karen tells Tracy, like, "Oh, Kelly wants to join Annapolis." And at first Tracy thinks it's funny, but then Karen's like, "It's not funny. It's not," and then Tracy's like, "Oh, okay." Of course, her son, Danny, is now at the academy. And eventually Tracy says, like, "Hey, we brought up our kids in this crazy world. Is it that surprising that they want to be astronauts too? They want to follow in our footsteps and be part of NASA or whatever, So as much as we may not want that for them, maybe that's, we owe it to try to support them in that effort as much as it is." So I don't know, like Tracy trying to be there for Karen, but also saying to Karen, "Hey, I think you need to try to maybe come to peace with this sooner than later, because how would you like it if someone else told you couldn't do something when you were that age? Probably not going to go over well." Tracy, she's hitting the booze hard, and we then transition to Gordo, who is sleeping back at home when he gets a phone call here at 2 a.m. And who is it? His ex-wife, Tracy, who has crashed her car into a farmer's field of some kind. Well, Gordo's like, what happened to you, Tracy? She's like, "I couldn't stop staring at her eyes." And we see she's looking up at a billboard of herself from that Rolex, or like not Rolex, but was it Brunning? Is that the name of the watch? He's like, "You're not making much sense, Trace." But she's crashed through a fence or something here. Anyway, she wants Gordo to come get her. Oh yeah, she has a car phone too. This would have been pretty cool for 1983.
That's like, Gordo's a nice guy, but like that's considering, I mean, I would go pick her up too, but I don't know. He must have thought in his head, that's maybe a click. That would be a hang up. You're on your own.
If you're,
Like, I think that Gordo is not Gordo. These guys have like completely changed. I think said it earlier tonight. They've changed personas.
They flipped.
Right. They flipped.
Like he's now the non-confident one. "Yes, dear, I'll come get you." And
right.
He doesn't have. He's not. The next morning he does stand up to her, which is good.
Yeah.
But he's just quiet and sullen like this whole season so far.
Yeah, he's lost his mojo a bit,
10 years.
Yeah, 10 years. And he goes, why didn't you he wants to take her home to like her home with Sam, and she's like, "No, don't take me there. All of those maids, like they judge me for my hard drinking and being irresponsible. It's not fun. Take us to our old home," right? So, yeah, if my ex-wife called me and asked me to pick her up drunk and then take her back to my place, like, I don't know, it's not a good thing. But then Tracy's like, "Pull over, Gordo, pull over," and she's like puking right into his front seat area, basically. And then he starts like patting her on the back here, and he even like he gets this huge smile that he's like with Tracy here. He's enjoying this a little bit, maybe. Am I still connected?
Yep.
I was just getting some bars. So we see here, yeah, when they come into the house, she drops her keys into the normal like key tray thing here. And then, Gordo's dragging her along. Gordo was going to put her on the couch, right? And go back to his bed. But then he like turns around, she's gone. And I guess she stripped off all her clothes in the process of going to the bedroom. You know, this was her home. This was where she lived. And she's now in his bed naked, presumably. And I unplugged my headphones. Anyway. And so
I love how he picks everything up and just dumps it on top of her.
Puts it right on top of her. Yeah, I know.
Yeah, closes the door. And he's like, I guess I'll take the couch. All right. Okay, then back to Aleda. Jeff. Aleda is talking to Davey, her boyfriend.
Bad name.
How could you do this? How could you call Margot and whatever else? He's like, if you don't have a job, you're going to get deported. You know, and they're talking, and he's like, you have a problem. You know, you can get back there. She's like, what if I go to NASA and I screw it all up? I say the wrong thing. I get into the fight with the wrong person, and then my dream is going to really be over. You know, but eventually she agrees. You know, like Davey convinces her to give this a shot, and to go for it. And then she was like, but you betrayed me and brought this person into my life to humiliate me. Something I swore would never happen again. So we're done. I'm over you. We're breaking up. He's like, what? You know, she's like, your stuff's in the box right over there. That's it. Bye. You know, and she just kind of sends a packing. Don't try to do anything nice for her later. She doesn't like it.
You're not going to ride my coattails as I go to NASA and, get to be a...
Forget it, Davey.
Yes, I think that's kind of what's going on more here is like, ooh, I can be with a NASA person, like that's kind of like Davey's motivation. And I think like Aleda sifts that out, but it's still like super self-serving and like
pretty cold.
It's pretty cold. And it's kind of like in a way where it's just like Aleda has issues. Like her whole character, just like get over yourself a little bit. Like, have a little humility, and the world's not out to get you, even though like just be like, just break up over the fact that you don't like them, like not, like
no, they were really in love, Jeff, but that was
right.
Like,
no, it was pretty. I think it was pretty clear she just didn't like him.
Yeah.
Like like. Yeah, it was like an excuse. It was like, oh my god, like we could have lived this trailer park, kind of life or something. Like that was like going to be her life or something. Like come on,
Aleda, get over yourself.
You were not going to do that. Like.
Yeah, she was. Well, she would have got deported if Davey hadn't intervened in this way, probably. But anyway.
Probably, but then she probably would have ended up back there anyway. Because I don't know, that's what the thing is that bothers me about Aleda, and like especially once they recasted her to this actress, like they changed her whole character, like from like even like this is the whole problem with her in season 1, is like in season 1 and her dad and everything, like the whole thing is all about sacrifice, and like she's going to America and her dad is sacrificing everything, and all she wants to do is NASA, and like she gets to see the Apollo 11 or like rocket go, and everything about her is about sacrifice. Now she's just like a petulant kid that is like thinks like the world is out to get her, which in some ways it is, but at the same time, like can you just like you're not the same person anymore. So it's just like, did we need Aleda in season 1? Why didn't they just introduce this character in season 2? It would have been way better. Because then I actually would have understood her. But like in season 1, I'm just like, all you want to do is be in NASA, and now you're like, no, fuck NASA. Like it's, I don't know.
I wonder though how much of it, like she was also perceived to have left that because of a boy, right back when she was 13 years old, right. And is dumping Davey now sort of okay? I don't have that distraction. I'm going to focus on this job.
Yeah, well, she definitely didn't have this like spunk or whatever you want to call it when she was younger.
Right.
But like we don't get any details. What really or very little. What has she been doing for the last 9 years? How hard has it been? Exactly or not? Like how did she feed herself? How did she live? I think that would be important to understanding who she is now more, but I guess we're meant to like sort of fill in the gaps a little bit mentally, you know, whatever you want to imagine, I suppose. Anyway, but as now Davy's gone and Aleda's kind of dealing with that moment, Aleda then we see she kind of goes back to that little keyboard she has. You know, she plays a note, and that, you know, as a kind of a symbolism, I suppose, to like she's gonna get back into the music, and you know, as Margot's a pianist as well, and has all that, you know, so her becoming more like Margot perhaps moving forward. Anyway. Back to Ed and Karen, who are asleep in bed. Ed can't sleep. He's still thinking about Mikhail. This betrayal. He's thinking back to those times when, you know, back in Jamestown, when he was beating Mikhail with his fists. You know?
The good times.
The good times. Back when he was a younger guy.
Just on the moon, making all sorts of friends.
Right. Thinking about those things. Thinking about, you know, that was the same time that Shane died, when he was losing Shane, and you know, going through all that. So it's bringing back all these memories for him, and think about, you know, that when Karen told him the news, him going to create that grave on the moon for his son. He looks over at Karen and decides to get out of bed, heads over to his, you know, to play with his little ships. And he's got his little naval aircraft carrier model here he's working on. This is what he does in his spare time. He's lost a piece, so he decides to go up and get a part, I guess, from the upper levels here. And then as he's pulling that down, we see that there's a box on the top of the, I guess it's the garage or something. It says Shane on it. So I guess, you know, Shane's ghost lingering large here for the Baldwin family. We then go the next morning to the Stevens home, where Tracy can't find her keys. She is woken up. Gordo's got a cup of coffee. Gordo, where are my keys? I can't find them. Did I lose them in the field? He's like, no, I took them. They're mine. Because they're the keys to this house where her children live, she says. You know, he's like, that's it. You can come see them anytime you want, but I'm not giving them back.
Yeah, you don't fucking live here. You don't get a key just because your children live here.
Right. You know, and so they're kind of getting into it. She's not too happy with Gordo here. And then he tells her, I got some news for you. I'm going back to NASA. I'm going back to the moon and to space and everything. You know, she's like, yeah, right, you are. She doesn't really believe him. But you know, he says, no, that's happening, and I'll be there in September. She's like, I'll be still on the moon in September. How could this be? How could you tell me this now? He's like, oh, it's good coming from me. And he found out about her getting married again on Johnny Carson. So he's still not over that, I suppose. And yeah, a bit of an argument here between.
But she really went all out on how it's going to affect her.
Yes.
Not at all. Hey, he's getting, you know, some confidence back, and this is a good thing for him. But
which, of course, it is. You know, and I know they're not married anymore, but just as, you know, she seems to still be his friend, right? Like she should, you know, enough to call him and say, hey, come pick me up. You know,
it's all about her, though.
It's all about her. She's a bit selfish right now, this Tracy, but she's, you know, maybe she's working on it. Anyway, Gordo gives it to her. So Tracy goes right to see Ed in the astronaut office, and you know, the picture of Gordo, a much younger version of Gordo here, before the weight gain. You know, vomit comment up here. She's not happy Gordo's going to be up there. She wants, you know, she accuses Ed of the boys' club, of him just helping out his pal. It's just like old times. Everyone else has got to bust their butt, you know. But Ed defends the decision. Says, you know, I decide who goes up, no one else.
But I think she's way out of line here. Like,
she goes a little far.
Oh, yeah.
I think, for sure. Yeah, like I think she has a bit of a point, but I think she's also, you know, like she just got back, right? She just got back, and she's missing Sims. She's got all this other baggage. You know, she's not perfect, you know, but it's the baggage of the past here. You know, like of course the Stevens and the Baldwin family, very interconnected, not just working at NASA together, but also, you know, just being family friends, and their kids are friends and everything else. And so, you know, she wants Gordo scrubbed from the flight. Take him off, Ed. You know, and Ed's like, I'm not doing it. I decide who goes up. And if you want to give up your seat. If you want to quit, Tracy, just say the word. We'll pull you. You know, he's being like Deke, and he's like, just let me know what's up. She's like, of course not. I'm here. So she leaves, but she throws one more insult his way before he goes, and so he kind of puts his glasses on as she leaves, and then he kind of throws it because I don't think he enjoyed that conversation too much overall. But Kevin, you tend to take more Ed's side in this particular debate, or do you feel like she's got some points?
Sure. Like, no, Tracy is being totally selfish here, like just self-centered, like nothing, like she doesn't care even about the program anymore. It's all about publicity and what things are going to look like, right? That's her whole argument. Is optics. Yeah.
Well, and she also says, I'm not going up there to be like the space couple, like the Stevens in space.
Astro wife.
The Astro wife. I'm not Astro wife anymore.
But they're not, and the world knows they're not married. Like, I don't get this criticism.
Well, yeah, I agree.
She's just mad. She's just mad that he's going up. That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. It's simple. She doesn't want to be up there. She doesn't want the distraction. She just wants. She thinks she's more important than Gordo. He's out of shape. He should. Yeah. He doesn't deserve it. That's her whole argument.
Yeah. Gordo also did bring up in the earlier conversation the fact that she still uses Stevens as her last name. She didn't take her new husband's last name or go back to her
Cleveland
name.
She could have been Tracy Cleveland.
Tracy Cleveland. It doesn't roll off the tongue quite as well.
I love when he says that. Oh, yeah, Tracy Cleveland. Yeah, I guess Stevens is better.
Right. Yeah, so there's all of their baggage and everything else. Anyway, back at the Baldwin home, we got Kelly here looking at life at Annapolis, the Naval Academy where her father went, where Danny Stevens is currently enrolled. Presumably, I guess Gordo went here too. Doesn't it look fun, Jeff? Life at the Naval Academy?
I think, okay, I wanted to say something about Kelly, like, why does she want to go to the Naval Academy? Like, I mean, I know what she's
serve her
about.
country.
I know what she's about later on in the show, and she's like, she's about science. That's her whole thing, right? So, like, why does she want to go to the Naval Academy? Why does she want to be in the Navy? Like,
she wants to be like her dad. She wants to be like Ed, right?
No, she doesn't, though. Like, that's the thing. Like, she wants to be an astronaut.
She wants to be an astronaut, but you have to be in the Navy first to be an astronaut.
Apparently, that's the path. But you could be in the Air Force.
In the Air Force, you could be just a commercial pilot, right?
But remember, the Navy has a whole division of flyers.
Yeah, I know. But like, you have to be in the military to as a path to becoming an astronaut, I guess is the question.
It seems like it seems to be a pilot. Yeah, like if you want to, but she's not going to be that. She's not going to be a pilot. So.
Well, that's what she said. She wants to be like fly Tomcats and F-18s and that kind of thing.
Right.
So she's looking at that. I don't know what draws her to look under her desk, but she finds this vent under her desk that she undoes, and I guess this was Shane's room before her, and she finds some of his old toys kind of like stuck inside of this vent, including an old Popeye toy. Took me a while to put this together. Popeye's a sailor. I get it. Right. Okay, Popeye's Navy. Right. So she finds that, but just then Karen comes in, so she doesn't show the toy right away. She kind of hides it behind her there, and Karen's like, "Is this real? Why do you want to go to the Naval Academy? I need to know you really want this for you." And Kelly says, "I do. It's what I want, Mom. I want to fly. I want to serve my country. I want to, be a fighter pilot."
I just wish that this conversation was different. I wish it was, I want to be an astronaut, and this is how I'm going to become that. I just wish that was the thing. Like that was a little bit more honest that way, because like later on, like that's what she says basically. So like, why is that not a thing?
And
like,
you'll learn how to fly, and you'll get a science degree. So it's not a bad path, I guess.
Right. No, it's a great way to become an astronaut if that's what you want to do. But like, just wish she had said that. Like,
But I don't, like, you got to remember, I mean, this is a militaristic society, and joining the military is a real path to going to war. And this is the fear, I think.
And this is what Karen's coming at. Like,
yeah.
I don't even know if she's even thinking astronaut yet. She's just like, you want to join the Navy because, of course, Ed was in the Navy before being an astronaut, and he was in Korea, and he got shot down. And there's like, I don't know, like if any of your kids said, "Hey, I want to join the military," are you all rah for it, or are you?
No, I would never react like Ed Baldwin.
But then you don't calm down. There's no calming down.
No, there will be no calming down. I'd be going mowing the lawn at night. I don't even have a lawn.
There you go.
I don't know what I'd do if he decided to do it. I mean, like, I wouldn't be. I mean, today's world is very different, and yeah, I don't. I mean, I've got friends who's got kids in the military, and but everybody just seems to roll with it. So that's what you got to do. Be supportive of the kids.
Support the kids, but there are real risks, and this is still Cold War, and tensions are, things happen here. We found those soldiers in wherever they were. They got at the beginning of the episode they mentioned it. Wherever that was, anyway, Panama. Anyway, but Karen comes around, and then she shows, hey, look what I found. I found Shane's old toy, the Popeye. This was his favorite toy, and gets emotional, and she's thinking about Shane, and there's support here. It's a nice scene. But Karen's coming around, and she's like, okay, I'm with you, Kelly. I'm going to support your decision to go to the academy. And they're all happy. And this is a sign from Shane, perhaps. Then Ed comes home, later on, and things are great. As he comes in to talk.
Harmonious as always.
Yes. Oh, we have a dinner at home tonight. Oh, and yeah, Kelly and Karen, they're all happy. They're assuming that Ed was going to be happy about this, right? But I don't know. I think Karen should be at least. If this was my reaction, Ed might have a similar reaction.
I think that Ed has, compartmentalized his grief. And never shared this side. I mean, we're clearly, right? We get that in a minute. But so right. I don't know if Karen should have expected that.
Yeah, I guess not. She because when she first gets on board with Kelly there, she says, "Oh, your dad's gonna be so happy about the football games, but whatever." But he didn't care about the football games that much. Wasn't the first thing that came to mind. And this is only to say to him that we're considered Annapolis is just the first choice, like maybe I'll go somewhere else. It's still a little up in the air. And he's like, you're kidding. There's a disbelief, a bewilderment. And then he just goes, no, you're not going. I'm not allowing it. And the conversation's over. And he kind of snaps and says, you can't just decide that, Dad. He's like, yes, you can. Yes, I can. I can't remember every word that's said, but...
I'm the head of this house, he says.
I'm the head of the household, yeah. Which, that's very much
never really works out.
Never really works out.
I don't need your permission. Something like that. He says. It's like, yeah, you probably do.
This argument then blows up in the living room here. Ed's yelling. Karen's yelling. Kelly's yelling. But Ed's got this intensity on his face throughout this scene that I was like, shit, I'm not messing with that guy right now. There's no way. But, they all stand up to him. He's like, I happen to know the superintendent of Annapolis, and I'll just call him up and tell him not to accept it. Your application will never see the light of day, and he's going to...
Fine, I'll just become an enlisted person in the Navy,
yeah, and then he's like, I'll kick you out of the house, you want to get out of here, and then...
And then Karen loses her
yeah, she starts hitting him, like like, no, you can't say that, and
then Kelly has to de-escalate the situation with her skills that she's learned over the last 40 years.
21.
We're not doing this anymore, Kevin.
Whatever this was, we're not doing it anymore. Yeah. There starts to be this calm down. You see, Ed's in like in a state of shock, over this whole thing. He's really
Ed's not all there.
It's not. No. There's a guy who just walked in happy about a family dinner a couple seconds ago. He's very much not in the same headspace now. And he starts talking. He's like, he apologizes, he even starts talking about he was just overwhelmed with like this feeling, and eventually the conversation comes to this place where it's the guilt of Shane, and he talks about the guilt of not being on Earth when Shane died, and that it was an accident, but he couldn't protect him, and all these things, and Karen tortured herself in similar ways years ago when she was first processing it as well. Could she have said something different? She could, she did try to ground
I'm sure she has tremendous guilt. Or had tremendous guilt. Remember, they had a big fight too, and the reason he left the house was disobeying her. And
right,
yeah.
Well, she tried to ground him, but then she didn't really enforce the grounding, and then he took off, and he got killed in the accident. But
well, she probably managed that guilt through Wayne. Like getting high with Wayne and talking, and Ed hasn't had anybody to do that with.
True. Ed's skeptical of weed. This is why he's not in as good of a place with it.
But I just mean like a friend to talk to.
There was no employee assistance plan.
Real way, right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then Joel Kinnaman, gives a really great performance here. Talking about the grief over Shane. This is like 10 years after his son's died, right? Like this is, or 2 years from the time they made the episode. It's like a really strong here. And like the family eventually kind of decides, no, this is, it's not your fault. You don't have to blame yourself. And the fear of the trauma of Shane. And now Kelly saying, hey, I want to jump in and be a fighter pilot and go off to war and potentially die or even become an astronaut. Like, I'm sure that would be very traumatic for these.
And he's had a day too. He's got Tracy on him. Then the whole thing about the bug.
Right. He didn't sleep that well last night. And all that, and eventually they have a bit of a family reconciliation here. First, Ed and Karen, and then joining in with Kelly, group hug. And then they say, "Look what we found today. We found Shane's old toy, the Popeye." And like he loved Popeye because he loved the Navy, like he loved you, wanted to just be like you, and he would, if he had not died, he would have grown up and probably joined the Navy, just like Danny did. And that's what we are. We bleed blue and gold in this family. That's how it goes. They start singing the Navy song, I guess, "Anchors Away" or something like that.
Yeah.
Which I'm not as familiar with, but they're coming together, and he's getting behind. He's okay now with Kelly going to the academy. So anyway,
great scene. This scene saves this episode for me.
This scene was so good.
Yeah. Really well done. Then we got one more scene to wrap up the episode. It's Gordo in bed with his laptop as he's he's doing his calculations, but I guess he fell asleep. With the laptop there, sort of sitting up. Remember when they used to play the national anthem on TV, and then at like 2 a.m. or 3 a.m.
Yeah, and sometimes the log drivers waltz.
That was more like in the morning, like when the CBC would come back on, like.
Did they? You mean the National Film Board one?
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that one.
That's a great one. I guess they don't have that in the States anyway. So it's to Static, which the Static I think wakes up Gordo. He starts typing a few things, but then I guess he's going to go to bed. Oh yeah, he's got Tracy's keys here. We see he puts those into the drawer.
No, those are his keys. They're his keys now.
Oh yeah, okay. Okay. I was like, they were Tracy's, weren't they? Okay, yes, yeah. He's put them in the drawer.
Actually, that's one of my favorite things he says in that argument. Was those keys fit these locks, and these locks are in my house.
Exactly. Anyway, Gordo, he gets up to turn off the TV. He's getting ready to actually go to proper sleep here. He turns off the light. But then he's looking up here, and then we see this red light dot here. And guess what? Space madness might be back here for Gordo.
So what was this? Was this like a 2001 reference?
I think it was like, you remember when he was on the moon previously, and he had all that mental episode, and remember he was seeing the laser across the valley. And we didn't know if the Russians. So I think it's like that memory of that, or the lingering trauma and anxiety.
Yeah, I like this callback. Yeah.
You know, and then he turns on the light and he goes, "Oh, it's just the VCR." You know, okay, it's just the VCR, nothing to worry about here. But then he turns on the light, you know, and then he's still laughing a little bit, but then we kind of see he tries to close his eyes and then he opens his eyes and we see, this is not good with Gordo. Gordo's still not himself yet. And that is the end of the episode. So, yeah, a lot more build up, a lot more setup still, you know, but we're getting there. Jess, you've watched this more recently. Episode 4, it's called Pathfinder. Is there more action in that episode? With a little help from Molly and Ed, plans a career change as his old Jamestown crewmates Gordo and Danielle struggle.
There's a lot of dialogue scenes, like a lot. Yeah. It's actually, I think there's almost no action in this next episode.
That's fine as long as things are moving forward, but. It's not bad. Like it's not bad this season. It's just very different.
Very different. Yeah, I agree. Like in the first season, there was just so many more times, and they're doing these amazing things. And right now, it's so much character development.
Yeah,
you know, and I do like that the show
Which
does
I like.
that.
Yeah,
I'm invested with these characters. Like I know them now. Like they're people to me. You know, and like just like Star Trek characters are. Versus a lot of other science fiction shows or even other shows where I'm like, I don't care about these people. But I'm in. What I like about the show is that these characters are so imperfect that they're all messed up in different ways, and you know, and they're just kind of muddling their way through. Adam, do you have anything fun or factual to share?
I've been trying to find some stuff, but I will talk about. My son gave me a book by Thomas Paine, the American Revolutionary, for Father's Day. Called Common Sense. So I was trying to figure out why, you know, they chose the name Thomas Paine for Thomas Paine on the show, but Thomas Paine was also head of NASA during Apollo 11, right? So I mean, it was also, but you know, so they do really say here, you know, they kept the name because he has the revolutionary and a key figure in the space exploration. But really, you know, themes for freedom and human rights, which the series aims to convey. So they're trying to keep that part of him because again, he's not like I like Thomas Paine. What was the other guy named? We called him something.
Kirshner or something like that.
Yeah, he like Thomas Paine is a good character on the show. He speaks he manages the government, I think, rather than taking orders from the government.
Right. Yeah, I agree. Like Thomas Paine, you know, I don't know how realistic he is. He's more of a virtuous person than I think.
Well, but you know, in real life, he was an engineer and he was the head of NASA through the formative years, like the first.
But did he specifically work for Nixon? He wasn't like a political person, right?
No. He was the administrator of NASA.
So he was more the real life Margot, basically.
Yeah.
Okay.
More on this firing a weapon in space is fascinating. Here we go. Okay, so on the moon, a bullet will travel in a perfect ballistic arc, unimpeded by atmospheric drag. This means the bullet will go for miles, potentially orbiting the moon, depending on the initial velocity. I said that before. Because the moon's gravity is 1/6 that of Earth, this success significantly affects the bullet's trajectory. Basically, you have to have a lot more awareness of downrange safety because this thing's going far.
Right.
Heat management. Guns designed for Earth rely on the atmospheric cooling to dissipate the heat. On the moon, the vacuum space eliminates this convective cooling, leading to rapid overheating. This could lead to malfunctions, potentially rendering the firearms useless or even dangerous to the shooter. Specialized lubricants and materials designed for vacuum environments would have to be essential for reliable operations. Recoil. While recoil force would be the same, the reduced gravity would result in more of a pronounced backward movement of the shooter, especially wearing a bulky spacesuit. Maintaining stability and aiming accuracy would be very hard versus Earth.
Everything would look like a spaghetti western. Everybody's...
So yeah, so that to me that means you would want a firearm with a lot less kickback, you know, right?
Yeah.
Low velocity.
The act of firing a gun on the moon also raises significant ethical questions. The moon, while generally not considered sacrosanct and increasing viewed of political science, it's a scientific resource, rich frontier. So indiscriminately discharging firearms recreates hazards that really could damage equipment and people who weren't trained for it.
Wouldn't it make more sense to not have a firearm, but to have like an airsoft or like a BB gun? Because all you need to do when you're shooting an astronaut is punch a hole in their suit. You punch enough holes in their suit and they're done. You don't need to actually have actually kill them.
Put a bullet through their heart or
whatever. Like you wouldn't need to, so you could be more safe, like with a weapon that doesn't actually, have a firearm type thing. So I don't know.
And even if you don't even have to kill them, right? Like if it pierces their suit, they have to go home.
Yeah.
What about like a harpoon gun? Would that be better?
Well, that would kill them.
That might go through them too, but okay. It'd be effective, I guess.
Yeah. Well, just see it coming more than a bullet, I guess.
I'll leave one more here. If you shot a laser gun on the moon, would anybody be able to see the beam? And the answer is generally no. A laser beam itself is invisible in a vacuum. But what you see on Earth when looking at laser pointers is a scattering of laser light through particles in the air. Since there's virtually no atmosphere on the moon, there's very few particles to scatter the light, making the beam invisible.
I guess if maybe the moon dust happened to be kicked up, right before that, maybe.
Yeah, dust or something. Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Adam. That was very interesting.
Yeah. One thing about this episode, they made reference to the fact that rules of engagement refers to how you interpret or interact with your enemy, right? But other than that opening scene, there really wasn't much discussed about it.
I got one more for you here. One of the astronauts, when they're searching for that the bug in the scene, they say they want to watch a movie called about the Mercury 7, and this is a nod to The Right Stuff. Yeah,
that was a good movie. We talked about music as well on this show, and in this one we had "Whip It" by Devo, "Thin Lizzy," "Downtown Sundown," and "True" by Spandau Ballet.
Okay,
all great ED songs.
True is a good song. So true, funny how it seems.
There you go, Jeff.
Well, with that, let's get into our ratings, everyone, and put a score down for this episode.
This is the sound
of my soul.
Yeah,
Okay, Jody's not with us tonight. Adam, you want to go first?
Yeah, I'm coming up to a 9 on this one. That family scene was great. Joel, what's his name again? Anyway,
Joel Kinnaman.
Yeah.
He, I think that he's done a great job so far portraying the anger and the rage, but now the grief was there tonight, and he did a fantastic job.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'll go next. I was actually almost crying at
Yeah, it was intense.
So yeah, I think that's a 9 for me too. Can we get Kevin out of
not
6?
A 9? Not a 9 for me, but it's better than last week, so I'll go 7.5.
Okay. Right.
Can I just say something before you? If you think about scenes or episodes in different shows, like this now to me is one of those. I'm going to take that scene particularly away from this and think about it. As so far the defining moment of season 2.
Right. Like it was to the point tonight where I didn't remember if it was in the same episode. Like I know that I thought like Kelly told Karen it wasn't until the next episode the scene was coming, but I was like, oh no, it's all in this one episode. And it was. I was actually it's kind of weird to want to go back to people fighting like that, but they did it so well. Okay, Heather not with us this week. We'll catch up with her next. And Jeff,
I'll do an 8.
An 8. All right. So we're averaging 8.4 between the 4 of us. We'll see if Heather and Jody's scores change that in the future. So, but that's our highest rated episode so far of the 3.
Heather's going to give this a 9.5 or 10.
Probably, yeah.
That's what I think.
Yeah, very likely. And
Jody, I thought unpredictable.
Jody, we'll see. I would never guess Jody's thought
No,
process.
whatever you say on this, you'll just do the complete opposite. So just say something.
Why, you thought I liked it? I hated it. Why, you thought I hated it? I loved it.
Yeah, he likes to circumvent expectations. Let's say that. All right. Well, that wraps it up. Sorry, I did not make a title card for next week's episode, but we will be covering Pathfinder next, episode 4. So tune in next Monday for that and hear all our thoughts about the next installment of For All Mankind. Also, this week we are wrapping up season 2 of Star Trek: The Next Generation with Shades of Grey, also known as the clip show episode. The writer's strike of 1988 finally got to them. They just did a whole bunch of retreads of former episodes.
I thought they just ran out of money at one point.
And they just ran out of money.
It's so bad.
Yes.
It is the lowest rated episode of any TNG episode, and it's not even close. So I think it has a 3 or something on IMDb.
Anybody?
Yeah. My favorite part is when Troy's like, he's very aroused right now, So that's what I'm really looking forward to. So check that out later this week. And we just 2 weeks ago we did that trivia session. There's always great stuff happening here on Live Long and Podcast and our sister channels like X-Rated and what else do we got? Super Mater Brothers, doing Survivor, or Marvel. Actually, I guess we're going to be covering Fantastic Four soon. So check out all those great podcasts. And hated to see this one. Those guys are great. And I think those are all my plugs. Oh, Eamon wants to do a podcast, so we'll be back for that soon. And with all that, we're going to wrap it up tonight and say thanks to the whole crew for being with us for another installment of For All Mankind. We will see you next time. And until then, live long and podcast. See you next time, guys. Bye.
Beam up some Star Trek content with Live Long and Podcast. Tune in to X-Rated, the X-Men animated review show. Artistic interviews with graphic histories. A roundtable movie discussion with Hey, did you see this one? And movie reviews with Hold Up, a movie podcast. And while you're at it, spin a few records with Eamon on track. Watch us duke it out on trivial debates. And let's chat about TV with the Super Mater Brothers. It's all here on the United Federation of Podcasts.